Hello, 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 greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of welcome across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear scholars, to the study. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello there, Julian20, welcome, and hello there, Private Maverick, welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you're all doing well. Oh, hello there, FD Waste. Welcome. Oh my goodness, first time chat as well. Welcome there. You have me at a loss of words, FD Waste. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome one and all to the study once more. So, I must ask, of course, how are you all doing, my dear scholars? I hope you're well. Oh, thank you for the resubscription, Sophia. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and welcome. ASMR. Yes, I suppose so. Although, of course, my ASMRs are very special. A bit of voice acting, of course. A little touch of drama. I can't help it. It's the theatrical, omniversal being inside me. Julian20, I love story time. It makes me so happy. Ah, I'm glad. Thank you, one and all, for being here. Now, as I was saying, how are you all doing? Oh, hello there, Firefly. Welcome. I am here but driving, so won't respond until I get home. Ah, understandable, understandable. FT Wastes. Doing just fine. It's been a nice day. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. And FT Wastes, I just got the pun in your name. Wonderful. You know me and puns. Private Maverick doing good so far. Union 20, the snow is melting. Oh, good, good. I'm glad the snow is melting. I can understand. In some locations on your plane of existence, it can get quite snowy. Thankfully, here we only get the occasional snow drift coming in from the snow room. Otherwise, we are quite doing quite well here. Things are doing all right. It's fairly quiet. No interruptions from book squids as far as I know. Horace and I have been busy cataloging a little bit in the study, and we are still searching for the kitchen. We have yet to find it. It went missing again. Last time we saw it, it was near the monk's habit, but that's about how many levels is that down? About 5,640 levels down below where this area is. So we we're still looking. Unit 20. Ah, but aren't you hungry? Um, as an omniversal interdimensional being, I actually don't need to eat. I simply eat out of habit and hobby. So I'm not hungry in the very least. I'll be fine. We just want to find it for convenience sake. So, my dear scholars, tonight or today or tomorrow, whatever time it is for you, we are going to be reading more of Sky Island. For all you newcomers to the stream, Sky Island is a book by L. Frank Baum, the writer of the Oz books. And Sky Island is about Little Trot and Captain Bill, who, along with Button-Bright, another character from the Oz books, end up on an island in the sky, as the title would suggest. They have currently been enslaved by the great Boolooroo, the leader of the Blues on the blue side of the island. And right now they're trying to find out a way to escape. Mm, quite interesting. As far as we know, the Boolooroo is a complete jerk. He's trying to hold on to power past the point that he is supposed to be leaving office, apparently, at least in this book. And there is a whole and there's a bit of drama with that. Sophia Ignace, I love Button Bright. That's it. What's going on? You'll excuse me, I'm getting tongue tied. It's interesting. Button Bright in this book is slightly different than Button Bright in his first appearance in Road to Oz. He's actually somewhat older, at least in description, and he's a lot more talkative. But the funny thing is, when we next see him, they actually kind of uh, regress him in terms of his character development and make him exactly like he was in Road to Oz, which is it's kind of an interesting thing because Captain Bill and Trot, when they next meet him, do acknowledge that they've met him before, but he is designed, drawn, and speaks like he did in Road to Oz, which is it's kind of an interesting direction there. Ah. So, my dear scholars, shall we begin our story for the evening, or morning, or afternoon? Just have to hydrate myself. When you read, hydration is very important, my dear scholars. You want to keep your throat well hydrated. FT Waste, let us begin. Ah, very well, very well. I would be happy to. Let me just find where we are. Let me part the curtain. So, my dear scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage, whatever your preference may be, and let us begin our reading of L. Frank Baum's Sky Island. Chapter 10. The King's Treasure Chamber. All the Blueskins assembled in the servants' hall were amazed to see the pets of the princesses trailing after the strange little girl. But Trot took her place next to Button Bright at the table, and the parrot perched upon her shoulder, while the peacock stood upon one side of her chair, and the lamb upon the other, and the cat and the dog lay at her feet, and the blue rabbit climbed into her lap and cuddled down there. Some of the Blueskins insisted that the animals and birds must be put out of the room, but Gip Gissizzle said they could remain, as they were the favored pets of the lovely snub-nosed princesses. Cap'n Bill was delighted to see his dear little friend again, and so was Button Bright, and now that they were reunited, excuse me, for a time at least, they paid little heed to the sour looks and taunting remarks of the ugly Blueskins, and ate heartily of the dinner, which was really very good. The meal was no sooner over than Ghip Ghisizzle was summoned to the chamber of His Majesty the Boolooroo, but before he went away, he took Trot and Cap'n Bill and Button Bright into a small room and advised them to stay there until he returned, so that the servants and soldiers would not molest them. "My people seem to dislike strangers," said the major domo thoughtfully, "and that surprises me, because you are the first strangers they have ever seen. I think they imagine you will become favorites of the Boolooroo and of the princesses, and that is why they are jealous and hate you." "They needn't worry about that," replied Trot. "The Snubnoses hate me worse than the people do." "I can't imagine a Boot Blue becoming a royal favorite," grumbled Button Bright. "Or a necktie mixer," added Cap'n Bill. "You don't mix neckties. You're next, excuse me, you're a nectar mixer," said Gip Gizzle, correcting the sailor. "I'll not be gone long, for I'm no favorite of the Boolooroo either, so please stay quietly in this room until my return." The major domo found the Boolooroo in a bad temper. He had finished his dinner, where his 6 daughters had bitterly denounced Trot all through the meal, and implored their father to invent some new and terrible punishment for her. Also his wife, the Queen, had made him angry by begging for gold to buy ribbons with. Then, when he had retired to his own private room, he decided to send for the umbrella he had stolen from Button Bright, and test its magic powers. But the umbrella, in his hands, proved just as common as any other umbrella might. He opened it and closed it, and turned it this way and that, commanding it to do all sorts of things. But of course, the magic umbrella would obey no one but a member of the family that rightfully owned it. That's really interesting that in these books, magic does have specific rules. So you just can't use magic willy-nilly. There are specifics to what you can do with it and specifics to how you can use it. At last, the Boolooroo threw it down and stamped upon it, and then kicked it into a corner, where it rolled underneath a cabinet. Then he sent for Jip Giselle.
Do you know how to work that magic umbrella?
He asked the major domo.
No, your majesty, I do not,
Was the reply.
Well, find out. Make the Whiteskins tell you, so that I can use it for my own amusement. I'll do my best, your majesty,
said Jip Giselle.
You'll do more than that, or I'll have you patched,
roared the angry Boolooroo.
And don't waste any time either, for as soon as we find out the secret of the umbrella, I'm going to have the three strangers march through the Arch of Phineas, and that will be the end of them. You can't do that, your majesty,
said the major domo.
Why can't I? They haven't lived 600 years yet, and only those who have lived that length of time are allowed to march through the Arch of Phineas into the Great Blue Grotto.
The king looked at him with a sneer.
Has anyone ever come out of that arch alive?
He asked.
No, said Jip Giselle, but no one has ever gone into the Blue Grotto until his allotted time was up. Well, I'm going to try the experiment, declared the Boolooroo. I shall march these three strangers through the arch, and if by any chance they come out alive, I'll do a new sort of patching. I'll chop off their heads and mix them up, putting the wrong head on each of them. Wouldn't it be funny to see the old moon's face head on the little girl? I really hope they'll come out of the Great Blue Grotto alive.
Wow, that is actually kind of horrifying imagery, I must admit.
I also hope they will, replied Jip Giselle. Then I'll bet you 4 buttonholes they don't. I've a suspicion that once they enter the Great Blue Grotto, that's the last of them.
Jip Giselle went away quite sad and unhappy. He did not approve the way the strangers were being treated, and thought it was wicked and cruel to try to destroy them. During his absence, the prisoners had been talking together very earnestly.
We must get away from here somehow or another, said Cap'n Bill, but of course we can't stir a step without the magic umbrella.
No, I must surely manage to get my umbrella first, said Button-Bright.
Do it quick, then,
urged Trot,
for I can't stand those snub-noses much longer.
I'll do it tonight, said the boy.
The sooner the better, my lad, remarked the sailor. But seeing as the Blue Boolooroo has locked it up in his treasure chamber, it mayn't be easy to get a hold of.
No, it won't be easy, Button-Bright admitted. But it has to be done, Cap'n Bill, and there's no use waiting any longer. No one here likes us, and in a few days they may make an end of us.
Oh, Button-Bright, there's a blue wolf in the treasure chamber,
exclaimed Trot. Yes, I know.
And a patched man on the guard outside,
Cap'n Bill reminded him. I know, repeated Button-Bright.
And the key in the king's...
Sorry, give me a second. I need to get Trot's voice again.
And the key's in the king's old pocket,
added Trot despairingly. The boy nodded. He didn't say how he would overcome all these difficulties, so the little girl feared they would never see the magic umbrella again. But their present position was a very serious one, and even Cap'n Bill dared not advise Button Bright to give up the desperate attempt. When Jip Giselle returned, he said, "You must be very careful not to anger the Boolooroo, or he may do you a mischief. I think the little girl had better keep away from the princesses for tonight, unless they demand her presence. The boy must go for the king's shoes and blue them and polish them and then take them back to the royal bedchamber. Cap'n Bill won't have anything to do, for I've ordered Tiggle to mix the nectar." "Thank ye, friend Sizzle," said Cap'n Bill. "Now follow me, and I will take you to your rooms." He led them to the rear of the palace, where he gave them three small rooms on the ground floor, each having a bed in it. Captain Bill's room had a small door leading out into the street of the city, but Jip Giselle advised him to keep this door locked, as the city people would be sure to hurt the strangers if they had the chance to attack them. "You're safer in the palace than anywhere else," said the major domo, "for there is no way you can escape from the island, and here the servants and soldiers dare not injure you for fear of the Boolooroo." He paced there. He placed Trot and her six pets, which followed her wherever she went, in one room, and Cap'n Bill in another, and took Button Bright away with him to show the boy the way to the king's bedchamber. As they proceeded, they passed many rooms with closed doors, and before one of these a patched Blueskin was pacing up and down in a tired and sleepy way. It was Jim Fred Jinks Jones, the double of the Fred Jim Jones Jinks they had talked with in the servants' hall, and he bowed low before the major domo. "This is the king's new blue black, a stranger who has lately arrived here," said Chip Chisel, introducing the boy to the patched man.
"I'm sorry for him," muttered Jim Fred. "He's a queer-looking chap with that skin. I imagine our cruel Boolooroo is likely to patch him before long, as he did me. I mean us."
"No, he won't," said Button Bright positively. "The Booloroo's afraid of me."
"Oh, that's different," said Jim Fred. "You're the first person I ever knew that could scare our Boolooroo."
They passed on, and Jip Giselle whispered, "That is the royal treasure chamber." Button Bright nodded. He had marked the place well, so he couldn't miss it when he wanted to find it again. When they came to the king's apartments, there was another guard before the door, this time a long-necked soldier with a terrible scowl. "This slave is the royal boot blue," said Jip Giselle to the guard. "You allow him to pass into His Majesty's chamber to get the royal shoes and to return them when they are blued."
"All right," answered the guard. "Our Boolooroo is in an ugly mood tonight. He'll go hard with this little short-necked creature if he doesn't polish the shoes properly."
Then Jip Giselle left Button Bright and went away, and the boy passed through several rooms to the royal bedchamber, where His Majesty sat undressing.
"Hey there! What are you doing here?"
he roared as he saw Button Bright. "I've come for the shoes," said the boy. The king threw them at his head, aiming carefully, but Button Bright dodged the missiles, and one smashed a mirror, while the other shattered a vase on a small table. His Majesty looked around for something else to throw, but the boy seized the shoes and ran away, returning to his own room. While he polished the shoes, he told his plans to Cap'n Bill and Trot, and asked them to be ready to fly with him as soon as he returned with the magic umbrella. All they need to do was to step out into the street, through the door of Captain Bill's room, and open the umbrella. Fortunately, the seats and the lunch basket were still attached to the handle, or so they thought, and there would be nothing to prevent their quickly starting on the journey home. I'm wondering if we are going to find out that the chairs and bucket have been removed. If so, oh dear, those poor Trot, Captain Bill, and Button Bright, they are in for a surprise. They waited a long time, however, to give the Boolooroo time to get to sleep, so it was after midnight when Button Bright finally took the shoes to in his hand and started for the royal bedchamber. He passed the guard of the royal treasury, and Fred Jim nodded good naturedly to the boy, but the sleepy guard before the king's apartments was cross and surly. "What are you doing here at this hour?" he demanded.
I'm returning His Majesty's shoes,
said Button Bright.
"Go back and wait till morning," commanded the guard.
"If you prevent me from obeying the Booloroo's orders," returned the boy quietly, "he will probably have you patched." This threat frightened the long-necked guard, who did not know what orders the Booloroo had given his royal boot blue.
"Go in then," said he, "but if you make a noise and waken his Majesty, the chances are you'll get yourself patched."
"I'll be quiet," promised the boy. Indeed, Button Bright had no desire to waken the Boolooroo, whom he found snoring lustily, with the curtains of his high-posted bed drawn tightly around him. The boy had taken off his own shoes after he passed the guard, and now he tiptoed carefully into the room, set down the royal shoes very gently, and then crept to the chair where His Majesty's clothes were piled. Scarcely daring to breathe, for fear of awakening the terrible monarch, the boy searched in the royal pockets until he found a blue gold key attached to a blue gold chain. At once he decided this must be the key to the treasure chamber, but in order to make sure, he searched in every other pocket without finding another key. Let me just take a quick sip of water. I'm on pins and needles. Although I have to wonder how many of you scholars would actually have the nerve to do this sort of thing. I mean, try and sneak up and steal a key under the nose of the Royal Boolooroo. I mean, even I don't think I would have the nerves personally. What about you, Horace? What do you mean you do this sort of thing? Horace, where's room 27's key? We'll talk about this after the stream, alright? Sorry about that. Little bit of a issue there. Alright. Let's see, where were we? Then Button Bright crept softly out of the room again, and in one of the outer rooms he sat down near a big cabinet and put on his shoes. Poor Button Bright did not know that lying disregarded beneath that very cabinet at his side was the precious umbrella he was seeking. Irony, or that he was undertaking a desperate adventure, all for nothing. He passed the long-necked guard again, finding the man half asleep, then made his way to the treasure chamber. Facing Jimfred, he said to the patched man, in a serious tone, "His Majesty commands you to go at once to the corridor leading to the apartments of the 6 snub-nosed princesses, and to guard the entrance until morning. You are to permit no one to enter to to leave the apartments." "My good gracious!" exclaimed the surprised Jimfred. "Who will guard the treasure chamber?" "I am to take your place," said Button Bright. "Oh, very well," replied Jimfred. "This is a queer freak for our Boolooroo to indulge in, but he is always doing something absurd. You're not much of a guard, seems to me, but if anyone tries to rob the treasure chamber, you must ring this big gong, which will alarm the whole palace and bring the soldiers to your assistance. Do you understand?"
"Yes," said Button Bright.
Then Fred Jim stalked away to the other side of the palace to guard the princesses, and Button Bright was left alone with the key to the treasure chamber in his hand. But he had not forgotten that the ferocious blue wolf was guarding the interior of the chamber, so he searched in some of the rooms until he found a sofa pillow, which he put under his arm, and then returned to the corridor. He placed the key in the lock, and the bolt turned with a sharp click. Button Bright did not hesitate. He was afraid, to be sure, and his heart was beating fast with the excitement of the moment. But he knew he must regain the magic umbrella if he would save his comrades and himself from destruction, for without it they could never return to the earth. So he summoned up his best courage, opened the door, stepped quickly inside, and closed the door after him. Oh dear, poor Button Bright. Wonder what's going to happen next. After all, as it said, he's going into an adventure which has absolutely no point because he walked right past the umbrella. Oh dear. Although that is very much a Button Bright thing to do. I mean, if you read Road to Oz, he really is, well, he's clever, but he's a little bit of an oddball, so to speak. And again, many of these characters are a little bit oddballs. That's what makes them so fun to read. Chapter 11. Button Bright encounters the Blue Wolf. A low, fierce growl greeted him. The treasure chamber was pretty dark, although the moonlight came in through some of the windows. But the boy had brought with him the low brass lamp that lighted the corridor, and this he set upon a table beside the door before he took time to look around him. The treasure chamber was heaped and crowded with all the riches the Boolooroo had accumulated during his reign of 200 or 300 years. Piles of gold and jewels were on all sides, and precious ornaments and splendid cloths, rare pieces of carved furniture, vases, bric-a-brac, and the like, were strewn about the room in astonishing profusion. Sounds like the Gnome King's place. Just at the boy's feet crouched a monstrous animal of most fearful aspect. He knew at a glance it was the terrible Blue Wolf, and the sight of the beast sent a shiver through him. The Blue Wolf's head was fully as big as that of a lion, and its wide jaws were armed with rows of long pointed teeth. Its shoulders and front legs were huge and powerful, but the rest of the wolf's body dwindled away until at the tail it was no bigger than a dog. The jaws were therefore the dangerous part of the creature, and its small blue eyes flashed wickedly at the intruder. Just as the boy made his first step towards the forward, the blue wolf sprang upon him with its enormous jaws stretched wide open. Button Bright jammed the soft pillow into the brute's mouth and crowded it in as hard as he could. The terrible teeth came together and buried themselves in the pillow, and then Mr. Wolf found he could not pull them out again, because his mouth was stuffed full. He could not even growl or yelp, but rolled upon the floor, trying in vain to release himself from the conquering pillow. Smart little move there. Excuse me. Button Bright paid no further attention to the helpless animal, but caught up the blue brass lamp and began a search for his umbrella. Of course, he could not find it, as it was not there. He found, what was it? He came across a small book bound in light blue leather, which lay upon an exquisitely carved center table. Kintron, why I try not to bite pillows. Oh, hello there, Kintron. Welcome. Yes, we are just reading Sky Island, and yes, apparently the best way to defeat a wolf is to stuff a pillow in its mouth. Who knew? It was named, in dark blue letters stamped on the leather, the Royal Record Book. And remembering that Chip Giselle longed to possess this book, Button Bright hastily concealed it inside his blouse, and then he renewed his search for the umbrella, but it was quite in vain. He hunted in every crack and corner, tumbling the treasures here and there in the quest, but at last he became positive that the magic umbrella had been removed from his room. From the room. Sorry. The boy was bitterly disappointed and did not know what to do next. But he noticed, excuse me, but he noticed that the blue wolf had finally seized an edge of the sofa pillow in its sharp claws and was struggling to pull the thing out of his mouth. So, there being no object in his remaining longer in the room, where he might have to fight the wolf again, Button Bright went out and locked the door behind him. When he stood in the corridor, wondering what to do next, a sudden shouting reached his ears. It was the voice of the Boolooroo, crying, "My key! My key! Who has stolen my golden key?" And then there followed shouts of soldiers and guards and servants, and the rapid pattering of feet was heard throughout the palace. Button Bright took to his heels and ran along the passages until he came to Cap'n Bill's room, where the sailor man and Trot were anxiously awaiting him. "Quick!" cried the boy. "We must escape from here at once, or we'll be caught and patched." "Where's the umbrella?" asked Cap'n Bill. "I don't know. I can't find it. But all the palace is aroused, and the Boolooroo is furious. Come, let's get away at once." "Where'll we go?" inquired Trot. "We must make for the open country and hide in the fog bank, or in the Arch of Phineas," replied the boy. They did not stop to argue any longer, but all three stepped out of the little door into the street, where they first clasped hands so they would not get separated in the dark, and then ran as swiftly as they could down the street, which was deserted at this hour by the citizens. They could not go very fast, because the sailor man's wooden leg was awkward to run with, and held them back. But Cap'n Bill hobbled quicker than he had ever hobbled before in all his life, and they really made pretty good progress. Good old Cap'n Bill. They met no one on the streets, and continued their flight until at last they came to the city wall, which had a blue iron gate in it. Here was a blue-skinned guard, who had been peacefully slumbering when aroused by the footsteps of the fugitives. "Halt!" cried the guard fiercely. Cap'n Bill halted long enough to grab the man around his long neck with one hand and around his long leg with the other hand. Then he raised the Blueskin in the air and threw him far over the wall. A moment later they had unfastened the gate and fled into the open country, where they headed towards the low mountain, whose outlines were plainly visible in the moonlight. The guard was now howling and crying for help. In the city were answering shouts. A hue and cry came from every direction, reaching as far as the palace. Lights began to twinkle everywhere in the streets, and the blue city hummed like a beehive filled with angry bees. "It won't do for us to get caught now. It won't do for us to get caught now," panted Cap'n Bill as they ran along. "I'm more afear o' them blue citizens ner I am o' the blue Boolooroo. They'd tear us to pieces if they could." Very hard to do I've mentioned it before, but it's very hard to do Cap'n Bill's dialect. L. Frank Baum does write in a sailor type dialect, and it is very hard to copy. Sky Island was not a very big place, especially the big blue part of it. Especially the blue part of it. And our friends were now very close to the low mountain. Presently, they paused before a grim archway of blue marble, above which was carved the one word, Phineas. The interior seemed dark and terrible as they stopped to regard it as a possible place of refuge. Excuse me. "Don't like that place, Cap'n," whispered Trot. "No more do I, mate," he answered. I think I'd rather have a chance on the fog bank," said Button Bright. Just then they were all startled by a swift flapping of wings, and a voice cried in shrill tones, "Where are you, Trot? As like as not, I've been forgot." Cap'n Bill jumped this way, and Button Bright that, and then there alighted on Trot's shoulder the blue parrot that had been the pet of Princess Cerulia. Said the bird, "Gee, I've flown here all alone. It's pretty far, but here we are." And then he barked like a dog, and chuckled with glee at having found his little friend. In escaping from the palace, Trot had been obliged to leave all the pets behind her, but it seemed that the parrot had found some way to get free and follow her. They were all astonished to hear the bird talk, and in poetry too. But Cap'n Bill told Trot that some parrots, parrots he had known had possessed a pretty fair gift of language, and he added that this blue one seemed an unusually bright bird. "As for poetry," said he, "that's as how you look at poetry. Rhymes come from your head, but real poetry from your heart. And whether the blue parrot has a heart or not, he's sure got a head." Having decided not to venture into the Arch of Phineas, they again started on, this time across the country straight towards the fog bank, which hung like a blue-gray cloud directly across the center of the island. They knew they were being followed by bands of the Blueskins, for they could hear the shouts of their pursuers growing louder and louder every minute, since their long legs covered the ground more quickly than our friends could possibly go. Had the journey been much farther, the fugitives would have been overtaken. But when the leaders of the pursuing Blueskins were only a few yards behind them, they reached the edge of the fog bank and without hesitation plunged into the thick mist, which instantly hid them from view. The Blueskins fell back, horrified at the mad act of the strangers. To them, the fog bank was the most dreadful thing in existence, and no Blueskin had ever ventured within it, even for a moment.
"That's the end of those short-necked paleskins," said one, shaking his head. "We may as well go back and report the matter to the Boolooroo."
Okay, need another little drink? Mm. I hope this book so far has been exciting for all of you. I mean, the plot is moving at a breakneck pace. We haven't had much time to explore any of the locations, really. Yulian 20, good story. Yes, it's a very good story. Much better than Sea Fairies honestly was. Excuse me. Oh dear. Oh, there it is. Much better than Sea Fairies was. This one, it seems like L. Frank Baum has figured out some of the pacing problems he had with the events of Sea Fairies and has fixed it. So then, let us continue. Sorry. Chapter 12. Through the Fog Bank. It was rather moist in the fog bank.
"Seems like a regular drizzle," said Trot. "I'll be soaked through in a minute."
She had been given a costume of blue silk in exchange for her own dress, and the silk was so thin that the moisture easily wetted it.
"Never mind," said Cap'n Bill. "When it's a case o' life and death, clothes don't count for much. I'm sort o' drippy myself,"
cried the parrot, fluttering his feathers to try to keep them from sticking together.
"Floods and gushes fill our path. This is not my day for a bath. Shut it off or fear my wrath."
We can't, laughed Trot.
"We'll just have to stick it out till we get to the other side." "Had we better go to the other side?"
asked Button Bright anxiously.
"Why not?" returned Cap'n Bill. "The other side's the only safe side for us."
"We don't know that, sir," said the boy.
"Chip Giselle said it was a terrible country." "I don't believe it," retorted the sailor stoutly. "Sizzle's never been there, and he knows nothing about it. The Sunset Country sounds sort o' good to me." "But how will we ever manage to get there?" inquired Trot. "Aren't we already lost in the fog?"
"Not yet," said Cap'n Bill. "I kept my face turned straight ahead ever since we climbed into this bank o' wetness. If we don't get twisted any, we'll go straight through to the other side." It was no darker in the fog bank than it had been in the blue country. They could see dimly the mass of fog which seemed to cling to them, and when they looked down they discovered that they were walking upon white pebbles that were slightly tinged with the blue color of the sky. Gradually, this blue became fainter, until as they progressed, everything became a dull gray.
"I wonder how far it is to the other side,"
remarked Trot wearily. "We can't say till we get there, mate," answered the sailor in a cheerful voice. Cap'n Bill had a way of growing more and more cheerful when danger threatened.
Never mind, said the girl. I'm as wet as a dish rag now, and I'll never get any wetter.
Wet, wet, wet! It's awful wet, you bet! Moaned the parrot on her shoulder. I'm a fish pond. I'm a well. I'm a clam without a shell. Can't you dry up? Asked Cap'n Bill. Not this evening, thank you, sir. To talk and grumble, I prefer, replied the parrot, dolefully. They walked along more slowly now, still keeping hold of hands, for although they were anxious to get through the fog bank, they were tired with the long run across the country and with their day's adventures. They had had no sleep, and it was a long time past midnight. Look out! cried the parrot sharply, and they all halted to find a monstrous frog obstructing their path. Cap'n Bill thought it was as big as a whale, and as it squatted on the gray pebbles, its eyes were on a level with those of the old sailor. Kerchug, kerchoo, grunted the frog. What in the sky is this crowd?
We're, we're strangers,
Stammered Trot.
and we're trying to escape from the Blueskins and get into the Pink Country.
I don't blame you, said the frog in a friendly tone. I hate those blueskins. The Pinkies, however, are very decent neighbors.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that,
Cried Button Bright.
Can you tell us, Mistress, good Mr. Frog, your Royal Highness, if we're on the right road to the Pink Country?
The frog seemed to laugh, for he gurgled in his throat in a very funny way. I'm no Royal Highness, he said. I'm just a common frog, and a little wee tiny frog, too. But I hope to grow in time. This fog bank is the paradise of frogs, and our king is about 10 times as big as I am. Then he is a big un, and no mistake, admitted Cap'n Bill. I'm glad you like your country, but it's a mite too damp for us, and we'd be glad to get out of it. Follow me, said the frog. I keep wanting to say fog. I'll lead you to the water. It's only about 6 jumps. He turned around, made a mighty leap, and disappeared in the gray mist. Our friends looked at one another in bewilderment. Don't see how we can follow that lead, remarked Cap'n Bill, but we may as well start in the same direction. Brooks and creeks, how it leaks, muttered the parrot. How can we jump? How can we jog to a frog in a fog? The big frog seemed to understand their difficulty, for he kept making noises in his throat to guide them to where he had leaped. When at last they came up to him, he made a second jump, out of sight as before. When they attempted to follow, no, as before, and when they attempted to follow, they found a huge lizard lying across the path. Cap'n Bill thought it must be a giant alligator at first, it was so big. But he looked at them sleepily, and did not seem at all dangerous. Oh, Liz, you puffy Liz, get out of our way, and mind your biz, cried the parrot. Creep-a-mousey, crawl-a-mousey, please move on. We can't move a step till you are gone. Don't disturb me, said the lizard. I'm dreaming about parsnips. Did you ever taste a parsnip? Where in our... excuse me. Gotta get Bill's voice again. "We're in a hurry, if it's the same to you, sir," said Cap'n Bill politely. "Then climb over me. I'll go round. I don't care which," murmured the lizard. "When they're little, they're juicy. When they're big, there's more of 'em. But either way, there's nothing so delicious as a parsnip. There are none here in the fog bank, so the best I can do is dream of them. Oh, parsnips, parsnips, parsnips." He closed his eyes sleepily and resumed his dreams. That's a really odd moment there. Walking around the lizard, they resumed their journey, and soon came to the frog, being guided by its grunts and croaks. Then off it went again, its tremendous leap carrying it far into the fog. Suddenly, Cap'n Bill tripped, and would have fallen flat had not Trot and Button Bright held him up. Then he saw that he had stumbled over the claw of a gigantic land crab, which lay sprawled out upon the pebbly bottom. "Oh, beg parding, I'm sure," exclaimed Cap'n Bill, backing away. Excuse me.
Don't mention it,
Replied the crab in a tired tone.
you did not disturb me, so there's no harm done.
"We didn't know you were here," explained Trot.
Probably not, said the crab. It's no place for me, anyhow, for I belong in the constellations. You know, with Taurus and Gemini and the other fellows. But I had the misfortune to tumble out of the zodiac some time ago. My name is Cancer, but I'm not a disease. Those who examine the heavens in these days, alas, can find no cancer there."
I don't know if that joke is clever or in really, really bad taste. Either or, it's just kind of bad.
"Yes, we can, sir, Mr. Cancer,"
said the parrot with a chuckle. "Once," remarked Cap'n Bill, "I saw a picture of you in an almanac."
"Ah, the almanacs always did us full justice,"
The crab replied.
"but I'm told they're not fashionable now."
"If you don't mind, we'd like to pass on," said Button Bright.
"No, I don't mind, but be careful not to step on my legs. They're rheumatic. It's so moist here."
They climbed over some of the huge legs and walked around others. Soon they had left the creature far behind. "Aren't you rather slow?" asked the frog, when once more they came up to him.
"It isn't that," said Trot. "You are rather swift, I guess."
The frog chuckled and leaped again. They noticed that the fog had caught a soft rose tint, and was lighter and less dense than before, for which reason the sailor remarked that they must be getting near to the Pink Country. On this jump they saw nothing but a monstrous turtle, which lay asleep with its head, or is it, with its head and legs drawn into its shell. It was not in their way, so they hurried on and rejoined the frog, which said to them, "I'm sorry, but I'm due at the king's court in a few minutes, and I can't wait for your short, weak legs to make the journey to the Pink Country. But if you will climb upon my back, I think I can carry you to the border in one more leap."
"I'm tired," said Trot. "This awful fog's beginning to choke me. Let's ride on the frog, Cap'n."
"Right you are, mates," he replied. And although he shook a bit with fear, the old man at once began to climb to the frog's back. Trot seated herself on one side of him, and Button Bright on the other, and the sailor put his arms around them both to hold them tight together. Aw, that's sweet. "Are you ready?"
Ding dong! Cried the parrot. All aboard! Let her go! Jump the best jump that you know! Don't, uh, don't, don't. Jump sort of easy, like. Easy, please. Going into British accent for some reason. Ah! Oh, dear me, I'm mixing up my accents. Jump sort of easy, please, begged Cap'n Bill. But the frog was unable to obey his request. Its powerful hind legs straightened like steel springs and shot the big body with its passengers through the fog like an arrow launched from a bow. They gasped for breath and tried to hang on, and then suddenly the frog landed just at the edge of the fog bank, stopping so abruptly that his three riders left his back and shot far ahead of him. It's sometimes difficult for me to keep track of all the accents I do for reading. It's very easy to slip into a British accent when you're doing the sailor's accent, since essentially the sailor pirate accent is a variation on the British accent, so sometimes it's kind of easy to slip into it. They felt the fog melt away and found themselves bathed in glorious rays of sunshine. But they had no time to consider this change, because they were still shooting through the air, and presently, before they could think of anything at all three were rolling heels over head on the soft grass of a meadow. For another drink. Excuse me. Mm. Yes, have to keep hydrated for all these voices. Actually, I'm going to ask you, dear scholars, a question. We're coming into the pink country now, and I've been debating how to voice the pink country people. Should I? Do you want me to do an over-the-top voice or something a little bit more controlled? What say you, my dear scholars? I'll leave the choice up to you, because I have an idea for a pig country voice, but I'm not sure if it'll work or not. What say you, controlled or over the top? Union 20, do what you think is best. Okay, bit of a mathematician's answer there. All right, I'll do my best then, I guess. What is this? Interesting. How interesting is that? So they actually don't mark the page as chapter 13. They just have chapter arrows circling around a 1. I wonder why. I wonder if that's a superstition or something. Chapter 13, The Pink Country. When the travelers could collect their senses and sit up, they stared about them in bewilderment, for the transition from the sticky damp fog to this brilliant scene was so abrupt as to daze them at first. It was a pink country indeed. The grass was a soft pink, the trees were pink, all the fences and buildings which they saw in the near distance were pink. Even the gravel in the pretty paths was pink. Many shades of color were there, of course, grading from a faint blush rose to deep pink verging on red, but no other color was visible.
In the sky hung a pink glow, with rosy clouds floating here and there, and the sun was not silvery white as we see it from the earth, but a distinct pink. The sun was high in the sky just now, which proved the adventurers had been a long time in passing through the fog bank, but all of them were wonderfully relieved to reach this beautiful country in safety. For aside from the danger that threatened them in the blue country, the other side of the island was very depressing. Here the scene that confronted them was pretty and homelike, except for the prevailing color and the fact that all the buildings were round, without a single corner or angle. Half a mile distant was a large city, its pink tintings glistening bravely in the pink sunshine, while hundreds of pink banners floated from its numerous domes. The country between the fog bank and the city was like a vast garden, very carefully kept and as neat as wax. The parrot was fluttering its wings and pruning its feathers to remove the wet of the fog. Trot and Button Bright and Cap'n Bill were all soaked to the skin and chilled through, but as they sat upon the pink grass, they felt the rays of the sun sending them warmth and rapidly drying their clothes. So, being tired out, they laid themselves comfortably down, and first one, and then another, fell cozily asleep. It was the parrot that aroused them.
Look out! Look out! There's folks about!
It screamed.
The apple dumplings, fat and pink, will be here quicker than a wink.
Trot started up in alarm and rubbed her eyes. Cap'n Bill rolled over and blinked, hardly remembering where he was. Button Bright was on his feet in an instant. Advancing towards them were four of the natives of the Pink Country. Two were men and two were women, and their appearance was in sharp contrast to that of the Blueskins. For the Pinkies were round and chubby, almost like apple dumplings, as the parrot had called them, and they were not very tall, the highest of the men being no taller than Trot or Button Bright. They all had short necks and legs, pink hair and eyes, rosy cheeks, and pink complexions, and their faces were good-natured and jolly in expressions. The men wore picturesque pink clothing and round hats with pink feathers in them, but the apparel of the women was still more gorgeous and striking. Their dresses consisted of layer after layer of gauzy tucks and ruffles and laces, caught here and there with bows of dainty ribbons. The skirts, which of course were of many shades of pink, were so fluffy and light that they stuck out from the fat bodies of the Pinky women like the skirts of ballet dancers, displaying their chubby pink ankles and pink kid shoes. They wore rings and necklaces and bracelets and brooches of rose gold set with pink gems, and all four of the new arrivals, both men and women, carried sharp-pointed sticks made of rosewood for weapons. Hold on a second, I need to practice this new voice. Okay, let me get a drink of water before I do this voice, because it's going to be a very strange voice, my dear scholars. Oh, thank you for the follow, Ike! Thank you for joining our wonderful scholarly group. Glad to have you here. Would do me better if I wasn't reading the book upside down. They halted a little way from our adventurers, and one of the women muttered in a horrified voice,
Blueskins. Guess again. The more you guess, I rather think you'll know the less.
Oh, thank you for the posture check. Worded. I didn't realize I wasn't following. Oh, thank you, Wardud, for the follow. You know what? I have to say this. I think, my dear scholars, and I'll have to check after this stream, I think we have officially reached 100 followers on the stream. We've officially reached 100 scholars following this stream channel. Thank you so much, dear scholars. I'll have to think up a special stream for this event. Um, I'm a little bit smiling right now. So for now, though, let's continue the story. And once again, I've got my book upside down. I'm so excited I have my book upside down, retorted the parrot. And then he added grumblingly Trout in Trot's ear, "Blue feathers don't make bluebirds." Really? Said the little girl, standing up and bowing respectfully to the Pinkies. We are not Blueskins, although we are wearing the blue uniforms of the Boolooroo and have just escaped from the Blue Country. If you look closely, you will see we aren't.
There is some truth in what she says,
remarked one of the men thoughtfully.
Their skins are not blue, but neither are they white. To be exact, I should call the skin of the girl and that of the boy a muddy pink, rather faded. While the skin of the gigantic monster with them is an unpleasant brown.
Say a 100 followers, yay, yay indeed! Captain Bill looked cross for a minute, for he did not like to be called a gigantic monster, although he realized he was much larger than the pink people.
What country do you come from?
Asked the woman who had first spoken. One question, scholars. With this new voice, can you understand what I'm saying? Or is it too squeaky? Kidtron, one of us, one of us, yes, one of us. Yulian20 sure can. Good. I wasn't sure about this voice because it is a little bit. I wasn't sure it would be understandable or not. Asked the woman who had first spoken. From the earth, replied Button Bright.
The earth? The earth? They repeated. That is a country we have never heard of. Where is it located?
Why, down below somewhere, said the boy, who did not know in which direction the earth lay. It isn't just one country, but a good many countries.
We have 3 countries in Sky Island, returned the woman. They are the Blue Country, the Fog Country, and the Pink Country. But of course, this end of the island is the most important.
Wow. So we go from one arrogant group to another arrogant group.
How came you in the Blue Country? From whence you say you escaped?
We flew there by means of a magic umbrella, explained Button Bright, but the wicked Boolooroo stole it from us.
Stole it? How dreadful!
They all cried in a chorus. And they made us slaves, said Trot. And wanted for to patch us, added Cap'n Bill indignantly. So we ran away and passed through the fog bank and came here, said Button Bright. The Pinkies turned away and conversed together in low tones. Then one of the women came forward and addressed the strangers.
Your story is the strangest we have ever heard,
said she.
And your presence here is still more strange and astonishing. So, we have decided to take you to Tourmaline and let her decide what shall be your fate.
Who is Tourmaline? Inquired Trot, doubtfully, for she didn't like the idea of being taken to anyone.
The Queen of the Pinkies. She is the sole ruler of our country. So the word of Tourmaline is the law of the land.
Seems to me we've had about enough of kings and queens, remarked Cap'n Bill. Can't we shy your Tourmaline, or whatever you call her, in some way and deal with you direct?
No, until we prove you truth and honor, we must regard you as enemies of our race.
Excuse me?
If you had a magic umbrella, you may be magicians or sorcerers. Come here to deceive us and perhaps betray us to our natural enemies, the Blueskins.
Yeah.
Mud and brick, fiddlesticks, we don't play such nasty tricks.
Yes. This voice is very hard on the throat, I'll admit, yelled the parrot angrily, and this caused the Pinkies to shrink back in alarm, for they had never seen a parrot before.
Surely this is magic,
Declared one of the men.
no bird can talk unless inspired by witchcraft.
Oh, yes, parrots can, said Trot. But this incident had determined the Pinkies to consider our friends prisoners, and to take them immediately before their queen.
Must we fight you,
Asked the woman.
or will you come with us peacefully?
We'll go peaceable, answered Cap'n Bill. You're a You're a making a sad mistake, for we've as harmless as doves, but seeing as you're suspicious, we'd better have it out with your queen first as last. Their clothing was quite dry by this time, although much wrinkled and discolored by the penetrating fog, so at once they prepared to follow the Pinkies. The two men walked on either side of them, holding the pointed sticks ready to jab them if they attempted to escape, and the two women followed in the rear, also armed with sharp sticks. Yeah, excuse me. So the procession moved along the pretty roadways to the city, which they soon reached. There was a strong high wall of pink marble around it, and they passed through a gate made of pink metal bars, and found themselves in a most delightful and picturesque town. The houses were big and substantial, all round in shape, with domed roofs and circular windows and doorways. In all the place there was but one street, a circular one, that started at the gate and wound like a corkscrew towards the center of the city. It was paved with pink marble, and between the street and the houses that lined both sides of it were gardens filled with pink flowers and pink grass lawns, which were shaded by pink trees and shrubbery. As the queen lived in the very center of the city, the captives were obliged to parade the entire length of this street, and that gave all the pink citizens a chance to have a good look at the strangers. The Pinkies were every one short and fat and gorgeously dressed in pink attire, and their faces indicated that they were contented and happy. There were they were much surprised at Cap'n Bill's great size and wooden leg, two very unusual things in their experience. And the old sailor frightened more than one Pinky boy and girl, and sent them scampering to the houses, where they viewed the passing procession from behind the window shutters, in comparative safety. As for the as for the grown people, many of them got out their sharp-pointed sticks to use as weapons in case the strangers attacked them, or broke away from their guards. A few, more bold than the others, followed on at the tail of the procession, and so presently they all reached an open circular path in the exact center of the Pink City. Okay, another drink of water. Now, normally I would only read 4 chapters tonight, but I think we have enough time. Do you think we should read one more chapter then? What say you, my dear scholars? Union 20, yes, please. Kinshron, yes. Ooh, gotta vote for yes. Alright, why not? We have enough time. Chapter 14. Tourmaline, the Poverty Queen. Oh, hello there, Sophia. The open space which they entered was paved with pink marble, and around it were 2 rows of large pink statues, at least life size, and beautifully sculpted. All were set upon nicely carved pink pedestals. They were, of course, statues of pinky men and women, and all had bands of pink metal around their foreheads, in the center of each band being a glistening pink jewel. Sophia, I delayed stream so I can listen to you. Mush. Thank you. Oh, that's sweet of you. I am honored. About the middle of the open space inside the statues, which appeared to be the public meeting place of the Pinkies, was a small low house, domed like all the other houses, but built of a coarse pink stone, instead of the fine marble to be seen everywhere else. It had no ornamentation, being exceedingly plain in appearance. No banners floated up from it. No flowers grew near it. "Here," said one of their guides, as the procession halted before the little stone building, "is the palace of Tourmaline, who is our queen."
What? This little cabin?
exclaimed Trot.
Of course. Did you suppose a palace would be like one of our handsome residences?
asked the woman, evidently surprised.
I I thought it would be better, said the girl. All the palaces I've seen were splendid.
A splendid palace!
exclaimed one of the Pinkies, and then they looked at one another in amazement, and seemed to doubt that their ears had heard aright.
These intruders are a very particular people,
remarked a man in the crowd.
they seem very ignorant, poor things,
said another in reply.
Come,
commanded the woman, who had led the party.
you three must follow me to the presence of Tourmaline. The people must wait outside, for there is no room for them in the palace.
So they followed her through the low archway, and in a room beyond, very simply furnished, sat a young girl, engaged in darning a pair of pink stockings. She was a beautiful girl, of about 17 years of age, not fat like all the rest of the Pinkies, but slender and well formed according to our own ideas of beauty. Which is, of course, ideas of beauty evolve, so who knows what he meant by that. Her complexion was not a decided pink, but a soft rosy tint, not much deeper than that of Trot's skin. Instead of a silken gown fur-bowled like all the others they had seen women wear in this land, Tourmaline was dressed in a severely plain robe of coarse pink cloth, much resembling bed tinkling ticking. Across her brow, however, was a band of rose gold, in the center of which was set a luminous pink jewel, which gleamed more brilliantly than a diamond. It was her badge of office, and seemed very incongruous when compared with her poor raiment and simple surroundings. When they entered, the girl sighed and laid down her work. Her expression was patient and resigned as she faced her audience. "What is it, Coralie?" she asked the woman.
Here are three strange people, Tourmaline,
Was the reply.
who say they have entered our country through the fog bank. They tell a queer story of an escape from the Blueskins, so I decided to bring them to you, that you may determine their fate.
The Queen gazed upon our friends with evident interest. She smiled, a little sadly, at Trot, seemed to approve Button-Bright's open, frank face, and was quite surprised because Cap'n Bill was so much bigger than her own people. "Are you a giant?" she asked the sailor in a soft, sweet voice.
No, your majesty, he replied. I'm only.
Majesty! She exclaimed, flushing a deeper pink. Are you addressing that word to me?
Of course, ma'am, answered Cap'n Bill. I'm told that's the proper way to speak to a queen.
Perhaps you are trying to ridicule me, she continued, regarding the sailor's face closely. There is nothing majestic about me, as you know very well. Coralie, do you consider majesty a proper word to use when addressing a queen? She added, appealing to the Pinky Woman.
By no means,
Was the prompt reply. What shall I call her then? Inquired Captain Bill.
just Tourmaline. That is her name, and it is sufficient,
said the woman. The ruler of a country ought to be treated with great respect, declared Trot, a little indignantly, for she thought the pretty little queen was not being properly deferred to. Why? Asked Tourmaline curiously. Because the ruler is the most aristocratic person in any land, explained the little girl. Even in America, everybody bows low to our president, and the Blueskins are so afraid of their Blue that they tremble whenever they go near him. But surely they are all wrong, said Tourmaline gravely. The ruler is appointed to protect and serve the people, and here in the Pink Country I have the full power to carry out the laws. I even decree death when such a punishment is merited. Therefore I am a mere agent to direct the laws, which are the will of the people, and am only a public servant, obliged constantly to guard the welfare of my subjects. Kintron, nice to have somewhere with a servant government. It's interesting. And you can see L. Frank Baum really delving into some of the social satire here.
In that case, said Button Bright, you're entitled to the best there is, to pay for your troubles. A powerful ruler ought to be rich, and to live in a splendid palace. Your folks ought to treat you with great respect, as Trot says.
Oh, no, responded Tourmaline quickly. That would indeed be very wrong. Too much should never be given to anyone. If with my great power conferred upon me by the people, I also possessed great wealth, I might be tempted to be cruel and overbearing. In that case, my subjects would justly grow envious of my superior station. If I lived as luxuriously as my people do, and had servants in costly gowns, the good Pinkies would say that their queen had more than they themselves, and it would be true. No, our way is best. The ruler, be it king or queen, has absolute power to rule, but no riches, no high station, no false adulation. The people have the wealth and honor, for it is their due. The queen has nothing but the power to execute the laws, to adjust grievances, and to compel order. What pays you, then, for all your bother? Asked Trot. I have one great privilege. After my death, the pink marble statue of me will be set in the grand court, with the statues of the other king and queens who have ruled this land, and all the Pinkies in ages to come will then honor me as having been a just and upright queen. That is my reward.
I'm sorry for you, ma'am, said Cap'n Bill. Your pay for being a queen is sort like a life insurance. It don't come due till after you're dead, and then you can't get much fun out of it.
I did not choose to be the queen, answered Tourmaline simply. A misfortune of birth placed me here, and I cannot escape my fate. It is much more desirable to be a private citizen, happy and carefree. But we have talked long enough of myself. Tell me who you are, and why you have come here. Between them, they told the story of how the magic umbrella had taken them to Sky Island, which they did not know when they started was anywhere in existence. Button Bright told this, and then Trot related their adventures among the Blueskins, and how the Boolooroo had stolen the umbrella and prevented them from going home again. The parrot on her shoulder kept interrupting her continually, for the mention of the Boolooroo seemed to make the bird frantic with rage.
Naughty, naughty, Boolaroo! Here's the worst I ever knew.
The parrot repeated over and over again. I'm going to take a quick bit of water. Ooh. Hydrate time. Excuse me. Excuse me. Captain Bill finished the story by telling of their escape through the fog bank.
We didn't know what your pink country was like, of course, he said, but we knew it couldn't be worse than the blue country, and we didn't take any stock in their stories that the fog bank would be the death of us.
Pretty wet, was the journey, you can bet.
Declared the parrot in conclusion.
Yes,
No.
yes, it was wet.
Excuse me. Trying to get his voice back.
Yes, it was wet and sticky, all right.
Dear scholars, please don't. Do not take any of these words out of context, please. Thank you. Agreed the sailor.
But the big frog helped us, and we got through all right.
But what can you do here? Asked Tourmaline. You are not like my people, the Pinkies, and there is no place for you in our country.
That's true enough, said Cap'n Bill. But we had to go somewhere, and this was the likeliest place we could think of. Your Island ain't very big, so when we couldn't stay in the blue country, where everybody hated us, or in the fog bank, which ain't healthy, and is too wet for humans to live in for long, we naturally were forced to enter the pink country, where we expected to find nice people.
We are nice, said Tourmaline, but it is our country, not yours, and we have no place here for strangers. In all our history, you are the first people from outside our borders who have ever stepped a foot in our lands. We do not hate you, as you say the Blueskins do, nor are we savage or cruel, but we do not want you here, and I am really puzzled what to do with you.
Isn't there a law to cover this case?
Asked Coralie. I do not remember any such law, replied the Queen, but I will search in the Great Book and see if I can find anything that refers to strange people entering our land.
If not,
said the woman,
you must make a law. It is your duty.
I know, answered Tourmaline, but I hope such a responsibility will not fall upon my shoulders. These poor strangers are in a very uncomfortable position, and I wish I could help them to get back to their own country.
Thank you, said Trot. We wish so too. We haven't you any fairies back?
Yeah.
Haven't you any fairies here?
Oh, there are fairies, of course, as there are everywhere, answered Tourmaline, but none that we can call to our assistance or command to do our bidding.
How about witches?
Asked Button Bright. I know of one witch, said Tourmaline thoughtfully, but she is not very obliging. She says it makes her head ache to perform witchcraft, and so she seldom indulges in it. But if there is no other way, I may be obliged to call upon Rosalie for help. I'll look in the Great Book first. Meanwhile, you will go home with Coralie, who will feed you and give you entertainment. Tomorrow morning come to me again, then I will decree your fate." The little queen then picked up her stocking and began to darn the holes in it, and Coralie, without any formal parting, led the strangers from the miserable palace. All right, we'll stop there for this stream. Let's bring up the curtain, and I will see you in the chat area to talk before we close out tonight. So, this has gotten interesting. Um, yes, I think really this book is paced far better than the Sea Fairies. I mean, we really haven't had much pause in the story. Um, I find it interesting we're getting some more social satire in the social commentary in this chapter. I think this chapter alone has had the most social commentary in the entire book, or at least the most blatantly one. Julian20 loved the story. Thank you. Oh, you're very, very welcome. Um, this, yeah, it's kind of interesting because one thing I find interesting is they do kind of make the Blueskins to be the more aggressive of the two and the more negative, but we also see there is some little bits of negativity in the pink side as well, in that they seem a little bit xenophobic, maybe? They don't like strangers much, that's for sure, but it's almost worse because they're so nice, and yet they really don't want anyone here. Which I would say makes it even worse than the blues because at least the blues are open about it. These ones kind of hide it. But we have a lot more also for the story, so we'll see how that goes. Julian20, don't trust them. I wouldn't. I'm not sure if I would say I don't trust them. I just think that they're just. How do I put? They're more subtle about their dislike of others, and it is interesting. The whole bank bit that seemed a little bit out of left corner. I mean, especially the lizard really seemed to go nowhere and seemed like just out of nowhere it appears and then it provides nothing to the plot. In a way, it's almost an Alice in Wonderland kind of bizarre event, I would say. Um, Otherwise, no, I think the book is getting really good. It's getting very good, in my opinion. And I'm really enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying it as well, my dear scholars. So, next week's schedule. Um, with this momentous event that happened tonight, I am going to have to delay announcing my schedule for this upcoming week because I have to do a little bit of planning on how we will celebrate this. I might mix in my 1 year anniversary celebration in with it because it has passed. I've been streaming for 1 year now, which is amazing. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to last this long as a streamer, but there we are. So I have to do some planning and some thinking. So I will let you all know what next week will look like. Um, but for now, let's see if there's anyone we can what's the word? Raid. My brain is in the clouds, it seems as well. 100%, yes. Let's see. Okay. Well, I think actually for tonight we will hold off on a direct raid. Oh no, I see. Sophia is starting her stream, and she is going to be reading Patchwork Girl of Oz, which is an excellent Oz book, and it's a wonderful book to read. So we will raid her tonight. Kinshon, you may have a small group, but it's a dedicated one. Ah, that means a lot to hear. Thank you. So, I say unto you, my dear scholars, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet again at the study, take care, and I shall see you once again. Farewell, and bye bye.